Alright, you're watching this because you're in a dilemma. Should I work a 9 to 5? Should I get a really good job? Or should I start a business? Oh, the media told me about Andrew Tate, Luke Belmar. They mentioned that the Matrix and this is crap and this is bad. But at the same time, I started my business and it didn't work out. Or now maybe I should work a job. Should I go for the big four? Should I work for JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs? I've been in this dilemma before, and now I have the solution for you guys. Because in this video, I'm only gonna talk about statistics, and by the end of this video, I'm gonna help you guys decide whether you should do a business or whether you should work 9 to 5. So let's talk about a business, right? In today's world, there are a lot of teenagers out there becoming millionaires at such a young age, right? There are drop shippers, we have the Forex kids, we have the e-com wizards, we have all these sorts of teenagers and young people who get rich really quickly. And there's nothing wrong about that. In fact, that's something really impressive, right? And so, a good thing about starting a business is you can get money really early and quickly. And let's talk about this, because I've been in this situation. When I was doing my degree in university, I started a social media marketing agency, just like how Iman Ghazi teaches it. And so I was racking up to 5 figures per month. 5 figures, right? It's not a lot. It's not 6 figures. It's not 7 figures. It's not millionaire status. But 5 figures for a person who was 18 years old at this time is quite well, right? And I was put in a comfortable position where I could buy stuff. I had a girlfriend. I treated her. And I was, to some extent, quite comfortable, right? And what was the issue? The issue was that when you are, right, I'll tell you guys this one thing for sure. If you are starting a business right now, you will probably experience this, or who knows, you might be even experiencing this right now. If you are in a position where you are comfortable, a lot of things go south. Seneca, the philosopher, the genius who talks about Stoicism, he talks about the importance of feeling uncomfortable. Because what happens is, if you're comfortable, you are not growing. Let's just put this equals not growing, right? And so if you study Stoicism and the philosophy, you understand this, because the only way any human being can grow and has grown, historically speaking, was only because he was doing risky, challenging, and uncomfortable work. That was the only way that the human was able to strive for the success. He or she puts themselves in an uncomfortable situation. Because when you're uncomfortable, you will face what the philosophers call the unwavering adversities of pain and suffering. Now, in today's world, when people talk about pain and suffering, they get all scared about it. Oh, there's such a negative connotation. Pain and suffering. We're not supposed to do that. Come, like, swallow some Panadol or something. No. That's not the right way. And it's not the right way of living, especially according to Seneca and the philosophy of Stoicism. Right? So, what do we do now? Right? Once we understand that pain and suffering equals growth, the next thing is we strive for something known as a purpose. Right? And so the thing is, when you run a business at a young age, your primary purpose is to make money. You have brainwashed, and I'm not joking, brainwashed and manipulated, because I've been in that situation before. You are brainwashed and manipulated to become rich. I'll say this again, you are brainwashed and manipulated to become a millionaire. You see all of this social media stuff online, about fast cars and women and all of these stuff. Look, don't get me wrong, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. But the issue is, you shouldn't see that aspect, that hedonistic elements of life. You're not supposed to see that as an end or primary purpose. You're not supposed to see that. And that's according to the orthodox religions, that's according to philosophies like Seneca, that's according to historical, conquerors around the world. None of them achieved greatness because they set themselves as an end goal. Oh, I want to become a millionaire. Or, oh, I want to be super, super rich. None of them did that. But this is the dangerous thing about business and the teenagers that start a business and become rich early. They put themselves in a situation where they think the primary purpose in my life is to make a millionaire. And so to become a millionaire. And so what's the issue is? The issue is the moment they are put in a situation where they become rich, right? And I wasn't a millionaire, but I was put in a situation where I was comfortable. Suddenly, I questioned my purpose. Suddenly, I was depressed. Suddenly, I had an existential crisis. Suddenly, I had all sorts of weird thoughts and imaginations because I was confused. I was like, hang on, I'm comfortable. I can buy the things I want. I can experience the things what other people can't experience. But why am I feeling all of these weird things? Why am I feeling like I'm having an anxiety attack? And no joke, that's what I experienced. And so that's because I realized that my purpose was fundamentally driven by those things that I just described, those elements, that the money, the woman, the materialistic stuff, the fast cars, the travel, the vacations. And so one thing what you gotta do right now is you gotta detach yourself from the materialistic purpose and formulate a purpose that is more meaningful. Purpose with meaning. And so has any one of you guys heard about the Maslow's hierarchy before? I assume you guys have probably heard about this in philosophy or psychology if you're studying psychology. And so we have the basic needs, right? Or the psychological needs, and then we have the safety needs, and then I believe there's the social needs, and then we have transcendence, right? And so essentially transcendence, Maslow's hierarchy, right? Transcendence has nothing to do with anything materialistic. At the top of Maslow's hierarchy, the thing right at the top, right? And Maslow's hierarchy is basically a description of your purpose, right, as a human, right? And obviously there are a million other frameworks out there, but I'll take Maslow because Maslow is the OG and he's probably the most popular one. But at the top of his hierarchy, of his framework, money, women, fast cars is nowhere near that. It's nowhere near. It's actually more in the second layer because in this, in the third layer. Because in the third layer talks about power and status, right? And so if you have money, right, you have power, or status. If you have fast cars and women, you have power. If you're a politician, you have influence, and that means power. So fundamentally speaking, as a student, your goal is to reach transcendence. And what is transcendence? Transcendence, in a nutshell, is your contribution and your purpose towards society. How much can you contribute to society, and what is your life work? What is your driven purpose on this earth? It's a hard question to tackle because it's a deep question and you can't answer it tomorrow. And even for myself now, I haven't formulated this part, but I know I'm getting there, right? And so I know I'm getting there, but this is nowhere near the plan. This is a byproduct. If you're an Andrew Tate fan, a Luke Belmar fan, or I don't know, Iman Ghazi or other people, yes, they talk about women and money, but even Andrew Tate, right? He said it himself. Money and women is a byproduct. And so remember that if you're a fan of his, right? And there's nothing wrong with Andrew Tate. And so that's business, right? And so another element I want you guys to understand about business is risk. Sorry, that's my cat. My cat doesn't like business as well. So, one thing about business is risk. And let's talk about risk, because you might sit here as an entrepreneur and might say, hey, listen, like I'm a businessman and I'm very well aware of my risk and I take calculated risks to start my business. Sure, that's fine. There's exceptions out there. There's amazing entrepreneurs out there. If you're ready to take a calculated risk and start a business, go ahead, be my guest. But let's talk about risk in terms of statistics. Do you know how many businesses close down after 3 years? Or even more so, if you want to stretch the statistic, every 5 years. You know how many cafes in Malaysia I have seen close down after a year? You know how many F&Bs and restaurants and passionate business owners who wanted to start this and that had to close after 1 or 2 years? The statistic is crazy, but I believe less than 10% of businesses don't succeed after 5 years. And that's a crazy business for you to understand, because if you ration out your population, right? I'm in Malaysia, there's 32 million living here. 10% of 32 million. That's like 32,000? If my maths is wrong, 32,000 businesses work, right? Okay, that was a crappy statistic because that assumes that every human is starting a business. But let's just say 32 million, every Malaysian decides to start a business. Let's just imagine 32 Malaysians in Malaysia decide to start a business and only 10% make it after 5 years. Yo, is it 320,000, 32,000? That's a very low number, right? And so I'm sure this 10% is lower, but I'm just being generous here, right? You can Google right now. This statistic's probably very, very much lower, right? And so there's that risk, right? Of you 3, 4, 5 years like doing your best to start up a cafe and then just to shut down 5 years later, and then the question comes out of 5 years, oh, what did I learn after that? Oh yeah, I learned how to start a cafe and I closed down. I mean, sure, man, if that's the thing that you're aiming for, sure, right? But we are all students and we're all humans and we all face the same thing. And one thing I want you guys to understand, that when I mean that after 5 years companies shut down, sometimes a company, right? I was running a restaurant. I was running a food stall in like some food court in Sunway at Subang, somewhere in Malaysia. Okay, just imagine I was running a food store, and I had to shut down, not because my business was shit or my team was crap or like my product wasn't doing well. I had to shut down because of external factors, things that were outside my control. Oh, suddenly like I got raided by this one government authority because I didn't have the right licenses. And during that time was COVID, so suddenly people couldn't like eat outside and like all these external factors. And then suddenly there was an AI boom, and most of my marketing was done by AI, and I just blew most of my budget. So very often when you close down a business, it could be external factors, and external factors are things that you can't essentially control, right? And so let's talk about working a 9 to 5. Let me erase this. Don't click off yet, because I'm getting somewhere. Don't click off because I said something so cliche. Because by the end of this, you can fuck. Sorry for my language. That shook me. Let's talk about 9 to 5. Right. What is the statistic of you getting a job? I'll tell you what it is. Every university says the same thing. 99%. Every university guarantees you employment. Every single university that you currently apply for has the same flipping statistic. Everyone says we have a 99% employability rate. The funny thing is they all say the same statistic because they all come from different sources. So that's the trick, by the way. But don't tell your universities because I told you that. So 9 to 5. What are the pros? The pros is stability and security, right? That one's a no-brainer. You work to 9 to 5, you know money's coming in, unless you work for a really shady company. But I really hope you guys don't work in a shady company. But 9 to 5, you have stability. So every month, you know something is coming in, right? And so the thing is, when things are stable, right, and you know money's coming in every month, then your next step as a young adult and as a student is to do budgeting, right? So from budgeting, you learn financial literacy, you learn financial discipline, you learn how to allocate and appropriate the right funds, you learn how to spend correctly, you develop a sense of financial literacy. Let's just call it that, financial literacy. And so I'll tell you one thing, during my time at JP Morgan, right? Financial literacy is a practice not only done on a personal level like me and you, but it's done from a consumer level, right? Companies learn and exercise financial literacy all the time. In fact, they are the ones who advise and consult about how to spend and save your money properly, right? Because that's essentially the function of banks as well as consulting firms. And so coming back to the previous idea, where if you want to start a business and if you're currently running a business, you'll understand how important financial literacy is. I'm not saying that you won't learn how to have financial literacy without a business, without working 9 to 5. You can learn, financial literacy when you do your business all the way. It just takes longer, right? And so when you're 9 to 5, you have a stable income, you feel secure, you start budgeting, and then you have financial literacy. Here's the good news, and this is perhaps the answer to your question. We live today in a world where the entire job market and the employment industry has fundamentally changed. Traditional jobs, right, the ones that your Asian mothers has told you, traditional jobs like doctors, pilots, policemen, ambulance, sales, real estate, those traditional jobs 20, 30 years ago, they were what I like to call it singular, meaning that you had one title and one job role, and you were basically narrowed down to the skills and expertise to the nature of that job. Right, so let me break this down a little bit, because even whatever I said just now was a bit confusing. In today's world, I like to call this power punch jobs. And so power punch jobs, what I mean is, every traditional job is basically a combination of another job, right? For example, if you are in finance, your job right now is a combination of tech, literally. So for example, if you're a financial analyst, 20, 30 years ago, your sole responsibility was to read the markets. Nowadays, financial analysts need to learn about Python, SQL, softwares like Microsoft, Data Snipper. Now financial analysts need to know technology as well. We didn't have that 20, 30 years ago. Pharmaceuticals. Now we have biotech. Right? So now pharmacy people need to learn how to use technology for their analysis or for their, creation of medicine. Now this is probably a crappy example. Let's talk about sales and marketing. Back then, sales, door to door, cold call, cold email, close them, negotiation, those rigid things. Nowadays, it's sales plus digital. So now guess what? You have to learn how to use social media marketing. Now you have to learn how to do ads on Facebook, TikTok. You need to learn how to create a personal brand. You need to learn how to do cringy dance videos and twerk your butt, for example. So now you have to learn that as well, right? And so the list goes on. Mechanic and tech, IT and finance. Okay, we have the same thing. Pilot and scientist. So you get it. Nowadays, the job landscape has revolutionized in such a way that now jobs is very often a combination of two things or even more things. And so why is this interesting and why is this important? One thing is interesting because now your job is not some boring as doctor your whole life. Now you are basically working in a dynamic environment where even though you are a doctor, for example, you need to learn other skills such as sales and consulting, right? And so the second thing and the last topic of this video, now the job market has evolved in such a way where remote job is so beautiful. Just write it here, remote jobs, and it's an industry that is going up like crazy, right? And so remote jobs, especially since COVID, guys, is on the surge. People working from different types of areas in the world, working for companies where they essentially work online or don't even have to commute to an office. So remote jobs is on the rise. And so what is a good thing about remote job? And this is what I did. When I had my remote job, essentially for JP Morgan, I decided to create my own business. And so here's the answer to this YouTube video. You don't have to do either or, right? It doesn't always have to be absolute decisions. It's not always, oh, I have to either start a business or work 9 to 5. Or I can only work 9 to 5, I can't start a business. Or if I start a business, forget about that job. No, we live in a world where the job market has evolved in such a way where you have time to start a business. And not to mention AI. AI has allowed us to complete jobs and tasks in such a small time frame, allowing you to have so much time to start a business. So why not? Why not work 9 to 5? I get it, the Matrix and all of those things that Andrew Tate, Luke Belma and stuff talk about, they do it purely for marketing. Okay, just understand that they do that purely for marketing. Because it's not traditional. It's not, oh, you have to do one thing. It's either one thing or the other. Now you can work 9 to 5 and you can start a business. And AI and tech has allowed us to do that. So why not? Why not start 9 to 5? Why not get good grades at uni? And then once you learn a lot of stuff when you work 9 to 5, right? Financial literacy, you learn teamwork, communication, you learn how big businesses work, and then start a business. Or start a business when you're working 9 to 5. You know how many people I know that have done that? People who even work for companies like Big Four or consulting companies that decided to start their own online business. There are many people out there. Right, and so if you guys enjoyed this video, share this with your friends, subscribe me. If there's any other topics you would like for me to talk about, just let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.